Hello, and welcome to the Practical World podcast. This is your guide to actionable insights and strategies for employees and salarymen. In each episode, we cover a variety of topics, from productivity hacks and financial tips to work-life balance and personal growth. Our mission is to equip you with practical tools to enhance your professional journey. Let's dive in and discover the benefits waiting for you in the practical world. This is the real world. This is the Practical World podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling a really important topic. It's one that I think is on a lot of people's minds, and that is the impact of smartphones and social media on childhood and this whole idea of, are we raising an anxious generation?
Right.
And to guide us in this conversation, we're going to be using excerpts from discussions around Jonathan Haidt's book.
Yeah.
The Anxious Generation.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, this book has definitely stirred some things up.
It has.
So our mission today is to really unpack Haidt's main arguments, see where other viewpoints kind of come into play, and then give you some practical things to think about as you navigate this whole messy.
It is messy.
It is messy, yeah.
It's a complicated issue.
It is a complicated issue.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating to me is that, we're moving beyond just screen time.
Yeah.
We're looking at how the very experience of childhood has been transformed.
Okay, so Haidt sets the stage by asking us to picture, a child from the 1970s, right? They're outside playing tag. They're building forts, just letting their imaginations run wild.
Yeah.
And then he says, okay, now fast forward to today. And picture a teen glued to their phone,
Yes.
endlessly scrolling through Instagram, comparing themselves to these
those seemingly perfect
filtered lives. What's he getting at here?
So his argument is that smartphones and social media have caused what he calls a rewiring of childhood.
Okay.
And drastically decreasing unstructured play, which used to be a cornerstone of, child development.
Yeah.
And there's research to back this up. Outdoor unstructured play has declined by almost half.
Wow.
Since the 1980s.
That's a huge drop.
It's huge.
Yeah. And he doesn't stop there, right? He goes on to connect this shift to what he calls a mental health crisis. He points to, these sharp rises in anxiety, depression, self-harm among teens, especially girls, since about 2010. Right, when smartphones became
ubiquitous.
Everyone had one?
Yes.
Is he saying smartphones cause these issues?
Not exactly. He sees a very strong correlation.
Okay.
Especially with social media.
Okay.
He argues that it fuels this constant need for validation.
Right.
Which leads to these feelings of inadequacy and a sort of addictive cycle where teens are perpetually seeking approval online.
It's making me think about all those studies that show that teens spending more than 3 hours a day on social media are at a higher risk for depressive symptoms.
It's a really specific tipping point too, right?
Yeah, it's not just general screen time,
right?
Which makes you think there's something else going on here.
Yeah, and then he throws in another ingredient into the mix, which is helicopter parenting.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
He suggests that by constantly shielding kids from challenges, parents might be inadvertently creating a generation that struggles to cope with setbacks and stress.
So it's like this perfect storm. You've got the technology changing childhood experiences, and then you've got these parenting styles that may not be equipping kids for the challenges they face.
Yeah. Are we setting them up for
failure in a way?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and he acknowledges that there's also this intense pressure of academics and this hyper-competitive culture that many kids are growing up in today.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's
that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But I'm also thinking about all those news articles that I read that kind of push back against this whole technology is the main villain thing.
Right.
Right. And they say, okay, yes, there's a link between screen time and mental well-being.
Yeah.
But it's not as strong as these other factors.
Right.
Are we too quick to just point the finger at our phones?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
Is there something bigger at play here? There was this 2021 study in Nature Human Behavior that found that screen time's impact on mental health was actually small compared to things like socioeconomic status, family relationships, and school stress.
Okay.
So while technology plays a role, it's clearly not the whole story.
Right, and let's not forget, like, technology is not inherently bad.
Right.
Right. Teens use it to connect with each other,
Yeah.
Build online communities, and even learn valuable skills like coding,
Absolutely.
graphic design.
Right.
So it's definitely more nuanced than just saying smartphones are evil.
Yes, right. More.
Yeah.
We also can't ignore things like economic instability, climate anxiety, and the lingering effects of the pandemic on mental health.
Right.
Those are major factors that are
Yeah.
likely playing a role.
Huge.
And they go way beyond just technology.
Absolutely. Okay. So it sounds like while there are valid concerns about the impact of technology on kids, we really need to consider all these other contributing factors as well.
Yeah.
It's a complex web, for sure. But then that begs the question, what can we actually do about it?
Right.
Because even if technology isn't the only cause of this anxiety,
Yeah.
there must be some steps we can take to minimize its potential harm,
Absolutely.
especially for like parents and educators.
Right. You're right. Let's shift gears and talk about some practical strategies.
Okay.
Okay, one thing Haidt emphasizes is reclaiming free play.
Okay.
It's about giving kids the time and space to be kids,
Right.
to problem solve, and to learn through experience without constant adult intervention.
So instead of like all those highly structured activities that seem to fill kids' schedules these days,
Exactly.
yeah, we need to be like, go outside and play.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Imagine organizing neighborhood play dates, creating safe spaces for unstructured activities, or simply encouraging kids to go outside and, play tag or ride their bikes.
Build a fort.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about fostering these essential skills like creativity, social intelligence, resilience that are harder to develop in a structured, screen-dominated environment.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to carve out more time for good old-fashioned play.
Yes.
But what about setting boundaries around screen time?
Yes. That's
I imagine that's a constant battle for a lot of parents.
It is.
Yeah.
It's crucial, though.
Yeah.
Establishing no phone zones during family meals in the car, and especially before bedtime, can make a huge difference.
Right.
And there are apps like Screen Time or Family Link that can help monitor usage and set limits.
So it's not just about reducing screen time for the sake of it.
Right.
It's about being really intentional with how and when technology is used.
Exactly.
Yeah, creating those opportunities for better sleep, for
Right.
more face-to-face interaction, for just like being present in the real world.
Yes.
But you can't just take the phones away and expect kids to know how to navigate the digital world responsibly.
You can't.
Right.
That's where digital literacy comes in. We need to equip young people with the skills to navigate the online world safely and critically.
Right, like helping them understand that what they see on social media is often carefully curated,
Yes.
and it doesn't always reflect reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Teaching them to be critical of online content and to avoid comparing themselves to others.
Yes. Very important.
Yeah.
And of course, encouraging offline hobbies is also key.
Right.
Whether it's painting, playing music, joining a sports team, or anything else that sparks their interest. Having passions outside the digital world can provide a sense of accomplishment and joy that's hard to replicate online.
It sounds like we're talking about balance.
Yes.
Right.
Balance is key.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot where technology enhances their lives
Yes.
without dominating them.
Right.
But how can we as parents and adults help kids find that balance?
One of those powerful things we can do is model healthy behavior ourselves.
Oh, that's so important.
Ooh, it's always watching us.
They are always watching.
If we're constantly glued to our phones, they'll pick up on that.
Leading by example.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like showing our kids that it's possible to have a balanced relationship with technology,
Right.
to enjoy life without being tethered to these notifications.
Right. To be present.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about showing them that there's a whole world out there beyond the screen
Mm-hmm.
and that it's filled with amazing experiences and opportunities for connection.
Okay, so we've explored Haidt's perspective.
Yes.
We've touched on some of the counter arguments. We've talked about some practical steps that parents and educators can take.
Right.
But like any good deep dive, we also need to consider some of the other voices that are in this conversation.
Absolutely.
Right.
There are other perspectives out there.
Yeah, and those different perspectives are exactly what we'll be diving into next.
Great.
Stay tuned.
So let's start with Jean Twenge,
Okay.
author of iGen.
Okay.
She shares a lot of Haidt's concerns,
Okay.
especially when it comes to the increasing social isolation of teenagers
Right.
in this digital age.
Mhm.
Her argument is that online interactions are replacing face-to-face connection,
Yeah.
leading to fewer opportunities to develop these essential social skills
Right.
and a greater sense of loneliness.
That makes sense. Like if you're spending hours scrolling through TikTok, you're probably not spending that time like
Right.
hanging out with your friends.
No.
Yeah.
And we all know how important real-world interaction is for developing those social skills and just feeling connected
Yeah.
to other human beings.
Absolutely.
But then we have researchers like Amy Orban
Okay.
at the University of Cambridge
Okay.
who challenge this dominant narrative.
Yep.
Orban's research suggests that while there's a relationship between screen time and mental health,
Okay.
it's much more complicated
Okay.
and less significant than other factors.
So it's not as straightforward as saying more screen time equals
No,
worse mental health.
it's not a simple cause and effect equation.
There are other pieces to this puzzle.
Precisely. Orban stresses the importance of looking at the bigger picture,
Okay.
considering things like sleep quality,
Mm-hmm.
family dynamics, and individual differences.
Okay.
She gives the example of a teenager who's struggling with family issues and not getting enough sleep.
Right.
This teen might be more vulnerable to the negative effects of screen time compared to a teen with a strong support system and healthy sleep habits.
Right. That seems a lot more realistic.
Right.
And it aligns with what we were talking about earlier. It's about the context, not just the screen time itself.
Right.
Yeah.
And we also can't forget that social media can actually be a powerful tool for connection,
Right.
especially for young people who might feel marginalized or isolated in their offline lives.
Right.
Think about LGBTQ plus youth, for example,
Yeah.
who might find a sense of community and belonging online
Right.
that they don't experience in their local communities.
That's such a good point. It's like anything else.
Yeah.
Technology itself isn't good or bad.
Right
It's
on.
how we use it. Exactly.
And the context in which we use it,
Right.
that really matters.
It's about how we integrate it into our lives.
Yeah.
So after all this discussion, where do we stand? We've got Haidt's compelling argument about smartphones and the increase in anxiety and depression among young people.
Right.
But we've also explored these counter-arguments, challenging the idea that technology is the only cause.
Mm.
And we've delved into practical strategies for reducing the potential downsides
Right.
of too much screen time.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners?
What can they take away from this deep dive?
Yeah, into this complex world of smartphones and social media and mental health.
I think first and foremost, remembering that this isn't about condemning technology. It's about understanding how it can potentially impact us
Yeah.
and figuring out ways to create a healthier, more balanced relationship with it
Right.
for ourselves and the young people in our lives.
And it makes me think back to all those practical strategies that we talked about.
Right, like encouraging free play, setting boundaries, fostering digital literacy, encouraging offline hobbies,
Yes.
and of course, modeling healthy behavior ourselves.
Very important.
These are all things that we can do regardless of whether we fully agree with Haidt or not.
Absolutely.
It's about taking action.
It is.
Yeah.
And as you navigate this complicated landscape, keep asking questions.
Yeah.
How can you create more opportunities for screen-free play in your own communities?
Right.
What steps can you take to model a healthy relationship with technology for your children?
These are such important questions to consider.
They are.
Because ultimately, it's about raising a generation that can thrive in a digital world.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Without sacrificing their mental well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And perhaps the most thought-provoking question of all is this.
Okay.
If technology isn't the sole cause of this anxiety epidemic,
Right.
what other factors should we be paying attention to and addressing?
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is.
Yeah. And it's something that we're going to continue to explore as we wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
You know, it's easy to get like caught up in this whole
Yeah.
screen time debate. Like, is it the source of all evil?
Right.
But if we take a step back for a minute,
Yeah.
we see this generation facing some pretty intense pressures
Yeah.
and anxieties
Absolutely.
that go way beyond just their phone.
Way beyond.
Yeah.
Exact. Like, think about climate change,
Yeah.
political polarization, economic uncertainty.
Right.
I mean, it feels
When
like,
the world's on fire.
yeah, the world's on fire. These are anxieties that weren't as prevalent for previous generations.
Right.
And while they aren't directly caused by smartphones,
Yeah.
they definitely play out in the digital space.
So social media becomes this like echo chamber where
Exactly.
these anxieties get amplified.
It does. It makes it even harder to escape that sense of doom and gloom.
Right. And then you add in the pressure to succeed,
Yeah.
the constant comparison with others online, the FOMO.
Oh,
It's a recipe for stress and anxiety.
It is.
And it's not just the technology itself. It's like the entire...
It's the whole landscape.
Yeah, the digital landscape.
Yeah, and how it intersects with these broader societal issues.
Right. Okay, so we're not letting smartphones off the hook entirely.
Right.
But we're acknowledging that it's not this simple black and white issue.
It's not a simple equation.
Yeah.
Exactly. Technology is a tool.
Right.
And like any tool, it could be used for good or for ill.
It really comes down to how we use it.
It does.
And it makes me think about the human element here.
Yeah.
Right? The choices that we make, the way we interact with technology, and the impact it has on our well-being.
Exactly.
It's more nuanced than just like blaming the device itself.
Yes. It's about human behavior.
Yeah.
Societal factors. Individual vulnerabilities. It's all interconnected.
Okay, so besides those practical tips we already discussed, like setting boundaries, encouraging offline activities,
Yes.
what else can we do to address this bigger issue
Right.
of anxiety in young people?
Well, I think it starts with open and honest conversations.
Okay.
We need to create spaces where young people feel safe talking about their anxieties,
Right.
their fears, their struggles,
Right.
without feeling judged.
And that responsibility falls on
Everyone.
parents, teachers, friends, anyone who interacts with young people.
Yeah, we need to be more aware of their emotional well-being,
Yeah.
not just their grades or how many likes they're getting on Instagram.
Exactly. And it's about giving them tools to manage stress and build resilience.
Yes.
Right? Like mindfulness practices, strategies for dealing with difficult emotions, and a strong sense of self-worth that isn't tied to external validation.
Absolutely.
It's about empowering them to navigate this complex world.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Both online and offline,
Yeah.
with confidence and a sense of agency.
Exactly. We want them to thrive, not just survive.
That's the ultimate goal.
It is.
To raise a generation that's not defined by anxiety, but by their strength, their resilience, their ability to create a brighter future for themselves and for the world.
That's a powerful message to end on.
It is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's given you a lot to think about and maybe even inspired some action. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Thank you for joining. This is the Practical World